So my name is Osha Jeffson, and this is the Entrepreneurship Speakers Series. So what we aim to do is just connect local entrepreneurs with people who have actually undertaken the entrepreneurship journey and made the jump and then gone through the highs and the lows of entrepreneurship. And so we're here with the founders of Bonanza Box, and I'll let them introduce themselves. If you could both names, and yeah,
For sure.
go from there.
I'm Deborah Turner-Davis. I am one of two Yukon Bonanza Box broads. Yukon Bonanza broads. There you go. That's our next business.
We should have thought of that earlier. Right now. Jennifer Tilsley, Bonanza Box as well. Yeah, pretty happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
And so I guess let's start right at the beginning. So tell us a bit about Bonanza Box and then how it kind of came to be what it was.
That has to start with Deborah because it was this idea.
Yeah,
right?
I had an idea for a while about, we all leave the territory and we go places and people don't have any idea what we are. They think they know who we are, what we are, but when they come here, they're surprised. There's only kind of a mystique or a cartoonish kind of understanding of what we do here. And I've had so many people come to visit and go to the farmer's market or go to the shops and just be shocked by the caliber of art and what we produce here. And I wanted some way of taking that out into the world. And I know that a couple of decades ago, Yukon government used to be really good at that. And there used to be artists contingents that went out to markets and big shows in larger centers outside the territory. And that doesn't really happen anymore. So I had this idea of creating some way of getting it out there. And then suddenly subscription boxes started to appear in the world. And that struck me as a great idea. Sadly, I have no time. So it was a great idea that I was never going to have an opportunity to take to market. And then I met Jen and we chatted.
We did. We were at that Meet Your Maker
That's
event,
correct,
which was last year's Meet Your Maker. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that event, but fantastic event in Whitehorse put on for food producers and farmers to meet folks in the community who might be interested in buying their products. So anyway, we were networking at that event and brainstorming.
Set up side by side in our little booths. Yeah.
So Deborah shared this idea with me and she said, do you have any extra time? And I was just getting Freeport Jenny's off the ground, still in startup phase. And I'd fully quit my day job with Air North. And so I said, yeah, I do have some time. I think we should talk more about this because I thought it was a really good idea. So yeah.
And I can't gloss over the fact that it was an idea that annoyed me. It annoyed me so much because I knew it was a good idea, but I didn't have time to do anything with it. And every time that because my other business, my business is called the Twisted Gourmet. So I'm busy and I'm engaged and I've been involved in the Farmers Market Society for a long time. And I know a lot of people whose businesses and creations I wanted to include in this, but I had no time to do
your
it.
Side hustle.
That's
your
yes,
day job.
that's right. So I mentioned it to Jen at this event. I said I have this idea that's driving me crazy because if you don't act on an idea, it bounces to somebody else's head, and you lose it, and they act on it, which is good. But I wanted to do it.
You could tell she had to be in her bonnet about it.
And she said, I didn't ask her if she had time. She goes, well, I have time to be, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So we went from only knowing each other casually and friendly acquaintances to, we joke that it's almost like we instantly got married and then
We eloped.
got to know each other.
We asked questions after.
Yeah. Yeah. So she said she wanted to do it, and that began a flurry of conversations and meetings and discussions and dreaming, and
Yeah,
it all happened pretty
brainstorming,
fast.
lots of coffee dates, lunch dates.
And so you took the box, you started reaching out to local artists, local suppliers to fill this box to essentially send to people who had subscribed. And I guess what was that process like? And from the start of your idea to sending out your first box, what was the turnaround from kind of the pearl to boom, we're actually game on?
The idea was shared with me in January at this event. It was probably mid-January of last year. And then by, like a week or two later, we were meeting for coffee and discussing the idea and whether or not it was even viable to try and launch it as a business. And by February, I was running trials on 4 different web platforms.
She was slowing me down. I wanted a March 1st box. I wanted it that
We picked
fast.
a name, we got our domain. So that part was quick. And then, but during that time, we were just meeting a lot, eh?
Yeah.
And then our first box was shipped out in June. So really we were launching by March. We knew we were getting our business license and we got our domain and we were refining website platforms, which is a whole other story.
Yeah, that's a big story. that was something like a subscription box is such a different business model from anything I've experienced before, and it's so specific. There's an entire industry of software available for people considering that. And it's complex, and each product has pros and cons. And when I say I didn't have time and Jen did, it's because she spent, I can't even imagine how many hours. She actually test drove 4 separate subscription box platforms to determine which one would work the best for us. And even the one that we eventually settled on wasn't perfect.
Still wasn't perfect.
And lots and lots of work with the developers to tweak it and fix it and adjust it.
And I don't have any formal training in that because I'm a pilot, so I figure I can operate machinery. And so I can probably figure out this website thing a little bit. I mean, it is a platform that is ready-made, but you still have to know a little bit about, that process. And I don't know, it was fun. I kind of just dove right into it. We did.
Yeah, we did.
And I don't know. What was the question again?
I guess maybe on the subscription box piece, though, you look at, it's as you mentioned, something that's kind of exploded and is now, commonplace. So what was the goal and how are you planning on making Bonanza Box different than some of the other ones that you had kind of seen?
Well, initially, sorry, I'm having a million hot flashes, so I'll just keep taking off my jacket and putting it back on. Thanks. I really wanted it to be Yukon specific. I wanted to celebrate what we have here because what we have here is quite unique. We have such a broad range of extremely professional, market-ready products created by food producers. We cover everything that you might hope to find.
The artistic community here, right? It's amazing.
Yeah, and so I really wanted that to go out. So I wanted, in my dream, and this is where Jen and I, this is why it's really good to have a business partner who is complementary to your strengths and who has, we keep each other in check. So for me, my grand vision was something that people could immediately put to use, a piece of art that could hang immediately on the wall. They didn't have to take it out and frame it. It would be immediately perfect, or something to put on the shelf, something they could consume, something they could, a candle or body lotion or something to eat. So I wanted to make sure that we covered off all of the areas that people like to indulge.
And something sustainable, something beautiful and handmade, or something usable, not something that's just gonna collect us somewhere, or not something plastic. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like something from the Yukon.
And I wanted smell. I really wanted smell. I know this is crazy, but I wanted, when you open the box, I wanted you to smell sage or wild roses or snow, or I wanted something. And Jen reminded me about things like,
snow
allergies and stuff like that. And so what if you put in...
That's silly practical
what
stuff.
if you put in Yukon food and then you put something stinky and everything? Yeah, so that was good, practical advice. But the next step for us was really just selecting what went into each box.
That was the fun part, really. I mean, a lot of it was the fun part, but that was probably my favorite, was when we would meet and brainstorm, and we might have been approached by some artists as well. So we had a little list, and then we had our little wish list of artists' favorites, and we knew
And Deborah walking around town creeping with my phone going. Taking pictures in galleries and taking pictures at markets. Yeah.
How about this? We could put this in the June box, or this could go in September.
Yeah.
That was a really fun process. That was the hard part, was actually whittling it down, because we would include about 7 to 10 items in each box. So it was actually whittling it down to 7 to 10 items that would actually fit in the boxes.
Yeah, because obviously you have a space constraint there for sure.
We had to ship the boxes here, ironically, which is another little point and a little nugget to take away. Is we touched on that already with O'Shea, was freight costs, but we ship everything up here, right? And then we have to pay so much to ship it where it's going, because some of those things like boxes, they're not made here, right? If they were made here, our boxes would have been, they would have been made here and we would have sent them out. So.
But on that's one of the challenges that a lot of businesses that want to expand beyond Yukon will face, right? Is trying to get their product out. And maybe in addition to the boxes, what other things did you find that maybe being in the North kind of limited you?
Just aside from the cost of getting goods here, the packaging goods, everything that we were sending out was produced here, or at least designed here, and then some of our vendors would have their artwork perhaps produced elsewhere. But just the simple cost of mailing, that was just...
It was exorbitant, and at the time when we set up our web platform, they didn't have, they're a bootstrap company themselves, actually Subly, who Cropbox is actually using for their weekly herb subscriptions here, Subly. So they actually didn't have the capacity to add a shipping cost dependent on where, or any kind of real-time carrier shipping or anything like that. So for us, that was really hard. We kind of worked with laws of averages and did some calculations and came up with a flat rate in our minds, but then we had to include that in the price of the box. So that also then elevated the price of the box even further. And it was already a pricier item, right? Because it was full of all these fair trade items that are created in the Yukon, where we're compensating all the artists fairly, right? And their margins are really small. So a lot of challenges with regards to sort of setting your price. And then once the price was set, we couldn't change it. And so we'd find, best example ever, sending a box to Vancouver was about 17 or 18 bucks, and sending that same box to Tagish was 26 bucks. I guess I could have driven it out there myself, but then maybe the person's not home. I leave it on the doorstep and a bear eats it. Like, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
So pretty
big challenge.
Yeah.
You did mention the personality styles, and I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit more, and just how you kind of came to decisions between the both of you, and maybe where your strengths are and where you find strength in the other person that you might not necessarily have.
I'm flighty. Jen's pragmatic.
Aww. I don't think Deborah's flighty at all. But you know what she is? She's an ideas person. And I think if you're going into a partnership and one person is an ideas person, a real free thinker, like creative, you want one person like that. I'm really good at like logistics, and like I can fly an airplane. So I'm more, it's boring. I can do that down in the weeds kind of logistics stuff, right?
And that's the stuff that honestly, if I had to test drive for subscription box platforms, this would never have started. I just would have gone, Yeah. So no, it's good. It's and it's, when I said earlier we got married and then we got to know one another, we didn't know that about each other at the very start. We just knew that we got along well.
Kind of clicked.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And it's fortunate that is the way things worked out. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't recommend that, honestly. Like, I think you should do a little more research.
Yeah.
But, as elopements go, worked out okay.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'll also let people know that if you do want to ask questions, feel free to just jump in, raise your hand, and you guys can ask questions as well. But one of the things that we talked about with Bonanza Box, and kind of an interesting thing that stuck in my mind when we spoke earlier, was just fail fast. And so with Bonanza Box, can you maybe talk about kind of where it is now, and then that kind of fail fast mentality that you have with it?
Yeah. Has anyone ever heard of fail fast before? It's a thing. Does anyone know what it means? Yeah, all right, good. I'm glad. Because when I first heard what it meant, again, I'm pretty new to this entrepreneur thing, so I was like, what does that mean? That sounds really negative. But my husband Jeff said to me, he's like, you have to use at least one airplane analogy during your talk. So you take off, and you're in your 737, and everything's fine, and you're up in the sky, and you've got like 6 hours of fuel, and like 3 hours into your flight, you have some sort of an emergency. What do? Right? It's just, if things aren't going as you planned at some point during your flight, you have to decide to make an emergency landing or maybe a precautionary landing, right? We weren't losing money, we were profitable the whole time, but you could kind of see sometimes when the writing's on the wall and things aren't going as you planned, your profit margins are too small and something's not sustainable, that you better make that precautionary landing and just get yourself on the ground and get yourself sorted out, cut your losses, or you can just burn another $15,000 worth of fuel and keep going to your destination, or you could crash and burn, right? So that is the best analogy. It just kind of popped into my head this morning. I'm having my coffee. And so it was a successful flight. I have no regrets, so much fun. But you gotta make that decision at some point to get yourself on the ground and to just regroup.
Well, that fail fast language, Jen and I both attended in Squamish last year, the CIMC conference, which I would recommend for anybody who is involved in anything online, really, anything where you plan to market online, or even if you just want to know what's happening out there in the digital marketing world. It's the Canadian Internet Marketing Conference. And it is held in Squamish every year. It's been at the beginning of April.
Yeah.
For some reason, they haven't released this year's dates.
No.
But it attracts incredibly high-level speakers. And they're not talking about how to plot your marketing campaign for Instagram. It's nothing to do with that. It's big-level thinking. It's how Airbnb transitioned from them almost going broke to where they are now. It's LinkedIn talking about what they're hoping to do within them, and Instagram and Disney and Google, and it's worth going.
Yeah, it was great.
It's mind-melting. Jen and I were sitting there, and someone came on to speak. I don't even remember who, perhaps Disney guy, and he said, if you're going to fail, fail fast. And I laughed because we were just about to launch, and fail. Write that down, fail fast.
I'm not even going to write that down.
But it's such an interesting concept because both Jen and I'm sorry to speak for you, but we've had this conversation. Although we've closed this business, I don't feel like we failed in any way. We tried something that hadn't been done before here. I think we made something incredibly beautiful, and we created opportunity for the smaller artists and vendors, which was the goal, which was my goal from the very, very first time this idea crossed my mind. I still think it's viable in the Yukon for someone with infrastructure.
And stock,
And
possibly.
stock, yeah.
Yeah, or as a not-for-profit.
For sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, the reason that we chose to close the business when we did was not because we weren't profitable, not because we don't have a strong customer base, because we do. We had, lots of people who were still subscribed and looking forward to the next package. But at a certain point, you have to make a decision about protecting the people who are doing the work. And throughout this entire process, because I did not have time, Jen did all the work. Literally all the work. I showed up on packing day. We would have coffee.
And all of the key decisions were made
together, but all of the slog and the sweat and the 2
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning on the computer, that was all Jen. And Jen is building her business just like I'm building mine. And there comes a point where you have to make a decision. Is this paying a salary for Jen?
Yeah, you
And
do
we
have
weren't
to pay
there yet.
yourself, right? So we weren't at that stage.
And so
Yeah.
if anybody is thinking about pursuing something like this, and you have the means and the resources to carry on another year past that awkward point, do it. It's great. We chose instead to zip it up.
We
but
did the precautionary landing.
we failed fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without failing. We were just fast.
Yeah, precautionary landing.
What was the conference?
The CIMC conference,
Yeah.
Canadian Internet Marketing Conference. Yeah, I've been several times.
I
2 or
think
3
it's
times.
always in Squamish too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it has
and
been.
You'd been
I've
the
been
year
twice
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really worth it.
Can you tell me who your target was? When you were...
Our target was broader than, the more we thought about it and the more people we talked to, the more it expanded. But initially it was people who had always dreamt of the North, people who loved the lure and the romance of the Yukon. But it was also, as we rolled out to market, it was people who used to live here. It was people whose kids were away at school. It was people whose parents, they've lived here for 20 years and they haven't been able to get their mom to come and visit, that kind of thing. So a lot of our business was sourced. They already had a very powerful connection to the territory.
Yeah.
But some good marketing that we did was through the Up Here magazine, which is the NWT sort of, and that attracted some people who
Yeah.
who just loved the North.
Yeah. Sort of a surprising element, though, that, we probably hadn't planned for. We knew that probably a few people would be the case, but it ended up, I should remember what percentage it was, but it was significant. It might have been a quarter even. It was probably about a quarter of our subscribers were Yukoners. There were people here, and then we were essentially shopping for them, and they were sending it outside the Yukon territory as a gift. And that's something I kind of wish we had known about again, because you could have had a different pricing structure possibly for people like that, but we hadn't anticipated that. We didn't realize that people would be interested in that. We thought, well, if they want to send a gift outside the Yukon, they'll just buy the gift themselves and they'll just put it in the mail, or they'll buy something on Amazon, or I don't know. But yeah, so that surprised us a lot, actually. But I would have had a different, probably a pricing structure for them, with a local shipping option, say, that was different, where they could pick it up or something.
Beyond your Up Here magazine, was it an ad or an article?
It was an
That
ad.
an ad.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what did you find effective in reaching audiences who weren't in the Yukon?
We had a lot of earned media, actually. We had a fair bit of editorial, which was great.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had CBC with Sandy Coleman's The Morning Show.
Yeah.
That was an interview. And then we had, I think there was a little piece from the Yukon News. So we're quite lucky with a couple of things like that were kind of free advertising. We did some Facebook ads, but
We also actually tapped into, love this word, influencers, external influencers. So we sent boxes to people with a fairly significant constituency outside of the territory. And Jen had some contacts, and there was someone we had met at the CIMC last year who became one of those people. And because of the business model, or because of the way that we structured the boxes, they were secret. No one knew what was in them until they were shipped. And there were lots of good reasons for that, but that might be something that we would. I still like that, but it made it harder to sell, particularly the first box.
because there's a lot of trust involved. It's like, send us $159,
We'll send you
and then
something
we'll
great.
send you something great. It's going to be 7 to 10 things.
Yeah.
They're just things, created in the Yukon, right? And the value is going to be there, but you have to trust us. Right?
Exactly. And the thing with the cost too, we had a lot of discussions at the very start. Should it be a $99 box or $129, or what should we do? And so we stuck on a sort of $139 plus the shipping, the $20 shipping.
Averaged out to $20.
And one of the things that I have really seen in the whole subscription box model, whether it's food delivered to your door fresh that you cook that night, or something, or the Fab Fit Fun, whatever you see online, there is a strong reliance on you're getting a great deal, $300 worth of product for only $49.99. And so that mentality is hard to overcome too.
Yeah, because that's not what we were doing.
No,
it wasn't like a deal.
We wanted to ensure
Sort of
that
in
the
that way.
value was recognized.
Yeah.
So.
It was a deal in that if you went and picked all those things from the box and shipped them to yourself or bought them from the store, you would spend more than what you were spending. So we were able to do that, but it's still a tough sell. And because it was it's a lot of money, right, for people to spend every 3 months. So
I don't remember what the question was. We just went off.
No, that was perfect. But and even are there any other questions?
Oh, that's right. It was your question.
No, it's okay. I had a question about pricing that answer was answering at the same time, so there we go. Good tangent.
What were you going to ask?
Did you only have the one option, like a 139 package? or
We
did you have
did.
multiple?
No, just the one. We talked. Actually, we had
so many ideas.
We were going to do a Christmas version, and we were going to do a women-only version, and we were going to do a food-only version. So we had all of these ideas. And given, like I said earlier, unlimited time and unlimited resources, and Jen, like robot Jen, who didn't need to earn money, then we could have done.
I was at a different stage in my life, I think, where I didn't have to worry about trying to earn.
Or if you already
money.
had a store or something that,
Yeah, or you had stock on
or
hand.
staff that were bored, and you could just get them to do this.
Yeah. So it's just the one option,
Yeah.
How did that work I know that it ultimately was the decision, or was what led to your decision to close the business in terms of the difference of work input, but how is that kind of dynamic between business partners, like going forward? Would you have just shifted how that was happening, or what would you have?
No,
Our eyes were
more
open
time
going in.
Yeah,
No,
more
we
time
didn't.
never presented itself to me.
No,
It never
and
would.
that was understood going in.
Yeah.
So we just said, let's give it a try, because again, you don't know until you try something, right? And I firmly believe that. I have no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah, and when Jen
I'm
said-
so glad we tried it and we did it. It was like business school 101 for me. It was great. I think I learned more than I could have learned paying for a course somewhere, say, in marketing a product from the Yukon.
No, we started talking about, sort of mid-November. Well, actually earlier than that, because we probably by October, when we were really planning what was going into the December box, we were discussing, will we do, we go the full year? Because we had planned to go the full year and then decide after the March shipment. And I had to really defer to Jen because she was doing the work. I would still be going, but I wasn't doing it. So it's super easy for me to say, no, let's keep going forever. but when Jen said it's too much and I need to focus my energies on Freeport Jenny's, there's no option but to step back and say thank you. And and so on. But that's why when we were planning the December box, we made a beautiful,
So good.
beautiful
We had to go to
box.
Uline and order new boxes because the boxes we had are too small. You guys want to buy some boxes? I have extra ones. Actually, Katie from Klondike Kettle Corn is probably going to get them for her popcorn subscription box, so they're going to be put to good use. But yeah, it's funny.
But when you look at what's available here, you could, as to your question, did you have the one option? You could do crazy amounts of
So many. If you had some resources.
Or even smaller boxes, 3 to 4 pieces for $79.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. It's just that shipping thing is always a trick. But if you could maybe, people expect free shipping to a certain degree. But if you're embedding the cost of your shipping in your product, they're still paying for their shipping, right? But in a way, if you could maybe make it more attractive by saying, well, the box is $59 plus shipping or something like that, that initial number that they see will be a more attractive, lower number, right? And then they'll be like, okay, well, it's worth it. I'm going to send it to, so-and-so for a gift in Nova Scotia or whatever. And yeah, the shipping might end up costing $25, right? Yeah.
And just one more thing about the viability of it, and we're looking at something like this where you know there's going to be a period of time before you're making money. You know that going into any business, and it's going to take some time. But where was I going with this?
Well, the business was bootstrapped, though. I mean,
Yeah,
we each put in like $1,000 or whatever, and it just kind of kept sustaining itself. It did fund itself, right?
Because both of us, I have a full-time job, and it's quite a demanding full-time job. And this last 6 months has been really a demanding full-time job. And then I have my own business, which I'm trying to grow. And Jen has her own business, which she's trying to grow, and young kids. And so if you had fewer distractions, and if you were willing, if you had the time to put more hustle, we didn't have time to hustle. And that's part of it too, is that we just didn't have the extra hustle in us.
That's right.
Can I ask you a question about that? Is it possible, what you're doing, to bundle your time so you do these short bursts, intensive, then do nothing about it for a while, short intensive?
I think we did that.
Yeah, we did do that actually, because we would definitely have the launch, getting it off the ground the first few months was a bit nonstop. But once that was that stuff was sorted out, then yeah, we would have little bursts. And while we were getting the boxes, deciding on what was going to go in them and contacting suppliers and that kind of thing, we're busy then. And then yeah, it would quiet down quite a bit. Then we'd be busy wrapping the boxes and shipping them. Then it would be quiet for a bit. So it was a little bit like that. We did have some
I'm
downs.
asking that because those pause times, often they're quite refreshing, allow you to do those other things.
It's true.
I mean, it may be possible to sustain a business using that model over a much longer period of time.
The only flaw in that, which we observed, is that in a subscription box model, your biggest enemy is churn. And churn is the subscription box word for
Whenever you like.
people cancel, people unsubscribe. It's like 3 months between boxes and they got to do this or they got to do that or they subscribe to something else. And so while you're intensely busy for the period of planning, executing, and shipping the box, the 2 months of lull time, that's when you should be hustling hard to keep people from dropping
To get
off
new
and to be
subscribers to
attracting new
replace,
subscribers so
yeah.
that every month you're growing. In the subscription box world, the approximate expected churn is between 4 and 10%, I think, depending on.
Yeah, it varies.
Between boxes or between deliveries, I guess?
You can anticipate like 10%
Just in general,
churn.
but quarterly subscription boxes have higher churn than monthly subscription boxes, hands down, like it's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the subscription box platforms we looked at wouldn't even offer quarterly. They would only did it monthly, so they couldn't make it work for us with every 3 months. We didn't want to ship every month, though. Again, just we had some reasons for
And
that.
that's where the hustle comes in, is that,
But also the need for a break.
Yeah.
You got life going on.
What? What?
Lives.
You mentioned this thing about weekend sleep-in on the way in here. Like, what?
And building on Selene's question a little bit, but as far as the partnership going into it, it's great that you both get along, but was there ever, or maybe as the business continued, would there ever have been a desire or possibly the thought of formalizing the relationship a bit more? And
Getting actually married?
yeah, exactly. Cure to any business.
Well, What do you mean by formalizing that?
I guess
we have an
maybe-
official business partnership legally.
As far as like maybe the role separation, or because obviously with Jen doing more of the kind of the in the weeds work, kind of splitting it 95/5 or whatever, like that sort of division, or was that I guess never
Some
crossed?
people do recommend that when you go into a partnership that you should have a partnership agreement, or that you should define, but we did define it right from the beginning. Yeah, and we knew that
I have no time.
I had
you have
so
time?
much time. And it was January was for me, it's just such a quiet time of year. So I was just all ears, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I could do this. I've got some time for sure. And I did have time. Yeah.
If the question is, did it lead to conflict between us? I don't think that happened.
No.
Unless Jen was like swearing behind my back. I don't think that happened.
Never. No, I was going to say I wanted to say this tonight, but if you have to pick a business partner, you should pick someone like Deborah.
Or Jen, honestly.
But we got along well. And that's something I would recommend is just, and again, part of it was luck because we did elope, right? But you want to make sure that you can communicate with your business partner as someone who, that communication is so important, and we're good with that. Yeah, we're really good. The channels are open. Yeah. So.
Questions? Do you think it would have been viable to, once you had enough customers, freight entire pallets of your boxes down south and then have some?
We talked about that, fulfillment, southern fulfillment. We did talk about that. The thing is, like, that Yukon shipping thing is lost, right? I don't know, I mean.
Yeah, it was just a lot of our items were food items too, and our producers are so small, and trying to give them the lead time that they need to make so many homemade, beautiful candles, or to create bars of soap, or to produce these things. In some cases, they were designed in the Yukon but produced elsewhere, like with the beautiful Yukon truck mug from the Collective Good, right? I mean, designed in-house Collective Good, beautiful mug, but not produced in the Yukon. So then there was even more lead time with some of those items, because then of course they had to get a number from us of subscribers, and we're like, well, I don't know how many subscribers we're gonna have. That's where your market research comes in. And then, so the fulfillment center would have been hard, because then we would have even needed more time. But it's such a good idea, and I can see why people do drop shipping and fulfillment, and why they use fulfillment centers, right? It's a good question.
Did you have a lot of stuff left over ever?
It's a great segue, and I'd like to touch on that little story there. Yeah.
So we didn't make a lot of mistakes.
It looks like
I'll
I
let Jen
planted
take
you in
this
the
one.
audience to actually ask that question. No. It's actually not. So
So let's talk about the story behind these.
all right, you start.
Oh.
I'll set this up so people can admire it for a second, and then.
So, as Jen said, trying to figure out how many subscribers we would have, particularly for our first box. Oh my God, how do you guess? I'm saying we should have at least 200. Jen's saying, could we just like maybe shoot for 150? And so there was that discussion. And when you're creating something like this and you're talking with individual producers who make their thingies by hand, sometimes in their kitchen or whatever, or like Priska Vetstein from Dawson, she's brilliant. She creates the art and then has it printed elsewhere. So we needed to give her a lot of time, and I'll let you take it from there.
This was a lesson in communication for me, and this is one of the things I wanted to share tonight, and it's one of those sort of self-deprecating stories of things that you learn as you're going through business and mistakes that you make. But for our first box in June, for every box we had an item which we called an anchor item. So we're like, it's the big ticket item, it's the nice item in the box, it's the most expensive item, it's probably the keepsake kind of thing, like
Emotional.
like that. And it's beautiful, and it had to be something gorgeous like Priska's work, and she actually paints with Photoshop essentially. So she takes all her own photography. A lot of it's animals. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Priska's work, but I'm just a huge fan, and I still am. So this is not to disparage her at all. This is actually to sing her praises. But so she paints digitally on her photos that she takes, and then she sells her work printed on canvases. She has fabric goods like pillows and tons of stuff, jewelry, beautiful jewelry. I actually should have worn, I have a necklace of hers. Anyway, so we're going along and we're like, okay, so this first box is gonna ship in June, right? So we need some lead time. So we have our wish list, we contact all our vendors, our producers, artists, And you know, how many things are we going to need? Well, so I drafted up like an Excel document, which is a purchase order, and made it look all official. We had a logo design, so we put the logo on that. And I put all the stuff on there that I thought we'd need information-wise to share with our vendors. You know, we looked at it, and so off we went. And so Priska had agreed to be one of our producers. And she said, well, I do need about 6 weeks in order to get these prints. Once you choose a print, I'm going to go out to the printer, which is somewhere outside of the Yukon. I'm going to have them print it, and then I need 6 weeks lead time to do that. They ship them to me in Dawson. I sign the back of each one, right? Because that's her signature. So it did have to go to Dawson before coming here. And then she would ship them down to us with a friend. Usually that's how things come down from Dawson or Husky Bus or whatever. Anyway, so how many do we need? 50 to 150. We're like, well, it might be 50 or it might be 150. I don't know. But nowhere on the purchase order did I really explicitly say we cannot guarantee the purchase of these items. You will have to find other channels to sell your beautifully created item if we can't purchase it from you. And we're not going to know that number until like it's about 2 weeks before the shipping date. So 6 weeks before, and I hadn't been clear with her. We're talking on the phone, and
I think I was in Mexico.
You're away, and yeah, and she's anyway, she's lovely, but I'm kind of on the spot. She's like, well, I got to order these now, and how many should I order? And I'm like, well, we're really hoping to hit this thing hard, and like, let's do 150. Okay, and then they came in, and it turned out that I really had not been clear with her. It was, I had to own it. And so we bought 150 paintings, and we only had 50 subscriptions. And this was our big item, and it wholesaled for $25 each. So I have like a couple $1,000s worth of paintings still.
We have.
We do? So you're welcome to buy one for 25 bucks. So I'm glad you asked.
It is.
It's inventory, which our model was never to carry inventory at all.
No, because you can't repeat an item. If you've got a subscriber, you can't repeat the same item in another box.
Well, could you repeat these items to a different person?
We tried selling them one-offs, but and we did sell some
Each
after
season,
that.
we had an entirely different curated selection.
Yeah.
So and we had one ship date. So some subscription boxes work on you subscribe and you get the season's box up to a certain date. So, but that's not the way that we ran this because that's really hard to manage.
Missed a box, you know.
Yeah, and that might have taken care of, you know, a handful of them, 20 or 30 or 40 maybe, but
Or even just different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Orders for pieces comes through you.
For this particular piece, of course,
And
they're
everyone-
exactly the same.
everyone we
because
know
we wanted them all to be
we'll
the same.
get these
the
for
boxes.
Christmas forever.
Forever. Yeah, you're a friend
Forever.
of ours. This painting is on your wall already. And we love her work. So like I said, it's not to disparage her, but really to eat a piece of humble pie myself, because it really was me communicating directly with Priska and not being clear and not having anything in writing. And then after that, I changed our purchase order, and I actually wrote it on the order, and I would have them, you know, sign it and send it back to me. Just saying, well, you know, you're going to have to sell the items later, you know, if we can.
Cover that base kind of thing.
Yeah.
We would commit to like a particular number, and once we'd made that commitment, that was lock solid. But beyond that, we couldn't commit, you know.
Did you need to pay them in advance, or was it like an after the fact, or on consignment? Like, how did you?
So they would just, we would just do up a purchase order. We'd say it should be in this range from this this many to this many to be delivered on this date. And then you'll be paid, you invoice us upon delivery, and then you'll be paid, you know, immediately, essentially. And by then we already had the money in from the subscriptions, right? So we just ebb and flow, no stock.
So with the boxes, within about, I think, was it 2 or 3 weeks? 3 weeks usually or so before the box, people knew exactly how many they needed to provide us with. And we always ordered several more than our actual box commitment for different
Promotional things, or if we were
boxes
going to
and
send
so on.
one to an influencer.
Did you ever have problems in your shipping where an item was broken and then you had to replace it?
No, we didn't. We were very careful, and we were also, not just in the actual packaging to ship, but also in the selection of items. There were so many things we really wanted to include, but, you know, one thing we tested when we got the sample from the producer came to us broken. And we're like, here in Whitehorse, just locally. And we're like, yeah, that's not, can't work.
Yeah, but we did include like a beautiful handmade ceramic tumbler from Astrid Cruz in one of our boxes, and it was just beautiful. Pottery. Anyway, I love her work, and knock on wood, yeah, we were really lucky with everything arriving intact. A couple people forgot to change their shipping address because they, with that subscription box portal, you can go in, you have a login and a password, so you can go in at any time and pause or cancel your subscription or change the address. So some people would change the address every quarter so that the box would go to someone else. So it was a present, and so that was really fun. So a couple times people forgot to change the address, so the person got 2 boxes. And they called us and they're like, can you fix it? And I'm like, sorry, it's already gone. Lucky, you have a very lucky recipient. Yeah, sorry, it's in the mail. Yeah. So, yeah. And I think in one instance, someone had moved, but they still got it. It was forwarded or something. So, yeah, we were lucky that way.
Any other questions?
Did you ever run into a scenario where you wanted to include something, but the vendor couldn't fulfill it in time for a certain subscription box?
We came awfully close once. I'm thinking of the Bannock lady, the Bannock.
Oh, yeah.
But we were really...
we always got it in the nick of time.
We did. And that was a key part of our early conversations, and even my thought process before I ever spoke with Jen is, who can we talk to that can actually do this? If we need 75 items, is the producer experienced enough? They've been around long enough? Have they sold to retail before? Are they accustomed to wholesale? Can they do it? Do they,
We did have one producer who backed out of a box, but she did it in such a thoughtful way, months in advance. She goes, look, you know what, actually going through, there's a lot happening in my life right now. It's not the best time. Could you keep me in mind for a future one? And we were like, totally, of course, no problem. And then there was one other instance where I think someone was medevaced, but then their neighbors came over to their house and fulfilled the order, and I picked it up from hidden on their doorstep. Yeah. It's so Yukon. I love it. Yeah.
And the initial idea of promoting Yukon artisans and craftspeople and producers, we have heard again and again and again from the people who were included in just the 3 boxes that we did ship, because what was put into them was so varied, and because we really put a lot of thought into people who were market ready, who were export ready, so that the vendors would include with their product their own promotional material, a brochure, their business card, whatever, so that we sent out with every package an envelope that contained our little menu of
Deborah's
items.
idea, these little branded envelopes with all the things inside.
And the business cards, so that people would get follow-up orders from the people that received it, so if it's coffee or candles or soap or what have you, salve and all that kind of
So
stuff.
it would be access to new markets for some of our vendors, like maybe their market reach was really small, so I think it was a win. When they got advertising on our website for the duration, you could always click on a tab and say, peek inside June box, peek inside September box, and it would have a little write-up, a photo, and links and contact information for that artist. And then we did profiles on social media of all of our artists as well, like Facebook profiles and kind of thank yous and everything. Yeah.
Were a lot of those relationships in place before you started getting the boxes going, or did you go out and kind of build those relationships and find those artists?
In many cases, they existed beforehand, but not all of them. And this is, in this community, there's all of these different connections, all of these crossover points, right? So for me, I was fortunate because I was involved with the Fireweed Market Society for a long time, and sort of through 12 days in the Fireweed Market, I had met or knew of vendors who did things, and Jen knew in different ways and through different connections. Yeah. But what was really neat was featuring, say, somebody from Haines Junction or just outside Dawson, people who weren't part of the sort of the craft mafia in the territory, which is there's a powerhouse craft segment here. That industry, don't discount that industry. That is a significant industry in the territory. Yeah. But people who were even on the fringes of that, which was really fun and exciting.
Yeah, so we'd have at least one community represented and at least one First Nations artist represented in each box. That was just our own thing that we came up with when we launched, that we wanted to do that. Because it wasn't just a box from Whitehorse, it was from the Yukon. So.
Questions?
I'm wondering if you did it again, what would you do differently?
If we had
I
more
would do it again. I would do it again, just like we did. But yeah, more time.
Well, like say you could tweak maybe part of your model or like is there anything you see where you would change it or like the initial capital like
Capital is where I
you
would.
have an inventory?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there anything you would
advertising
do?
budget.
I would.
would've been
I have
nice.
never accessed capital for any business that I've ever started. I've always done it from what I can skim off my bank account and take out of my grocery budget and that kind of thing. And in this case, I still believe that this is a very viable operation, and I think that it's such a wonderful opportunity for so many people. If we were to do this again, I would have looked for some capital so that the first 2 years, while we're getting our feet under us, Jen could have been paid, or somebody could have been paid, so that it could reach its potential. Getting something going and building something that people love, and then stopping, that's the disappointment for me. And not that we didn't have customers, not that people didn't like what we did, but that we had to stop. And we got really emotional responses from our customers when we said we're stopping. Like,
They were sad.
cry-ish kind of emotional responses. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have had another tier, like you said, a different offering, a smaller offering. And also if we could have had the shipping thing somehow sorted out, which we just couldn't at the time when we launched. But again, if you put your hindsight 2020 glasses on, go back, I would not include the shipping costs from the Yukon in a product wherever possible. But that's hard to do because then you need real-time shipping carrier integration, and that's really hard to find. I don't have it in my own other business, so yeah.
I want to probe the notion of how could you have created a condition in which this would be ongoing? We're not talking about a couple of years, but a 15-year business. Would it mean that, what I'm hearing is that it placed personal strains, understand that entirely. Would a third party, or an employee, or somebody who's part-time resolve some of those kind of stressors? I really want to explore how you can make this go in the long run.
I think that an employee, having a part-time casual employee for this wouldn't have been the fix. I think the fix would have been to be able to pay the high level. And by that I mean the person running the website, like Jen, basically. Mm-hmm. Because what Jen did for, not for free, but almost for free.
Free business school for sure.
It cost Jen was the stuff that the business couldn't function without. And for all of our packaging extravaganzas, which were fun and loud music playing and coffee and sushi, we had friends and family to help out with that. So that's the sort of stuff where you might have a part-time casual person.
Yeah, for some of that, the packaging part of it. Certainly if we got bigger, you'd need more of a fulfillment, like a place where you could go and actually store all the stuff, because it was stored in my basement or sometimes in Deborah's tiny condo, townhouse. And then we would haul it all down there and kind of put it together. And
So I think where the money would have been well spent, or the energy place would be in the administrative section of this.
Like having a couple of years worth of capital, like you mentioned earlier. Like I know someone said to me the other day, if you're going to start a restaurant, you need to have so many years worth of working capital the right word even? Yeah, you need to have so many years worth, because restaurants are typically so, I guess they're relatively risky, aren't they? And so that you do need that. And we did just start, like it was wonderful in a way, because it was so exciting, because we just launched. It was like, I barely finished the flight plan and we were going down the runway, and there we were. See, look at me go. With the,
am I the flight attendant? Would you like a drink?
No, co-pilot. Yeah.
Did you ever get any vacation time throughout this entire endeavor? Or was it like pedal to the metal all the time?
You know what? It ebbed and flowed. But again, I'm busy with my family, and I have another partnership with Mission A where we publish our own cookbooks. So I was working on cookbooks during this time too, and launching our second book. And then I was running my own business, which is Freeport Jenny's, which is a sole proprietorship, and I don't have any employees, and I just run it myself. So it was definitely busier. Once it got going, it didn't snowball or anything, like it wasn't out of control, but I realized that I didn't have a lot of extra time, and I like being busy. I do, but yeah. Now I have a little more time.
yeah, if there are no more questions, maybe just a final one, I guess. What would be something that you tell to entrepreneurs here who might be thinking about making the jump or kind of wondering, a final pearl of wisdom maybe?
Do it. Do it. Take the chance. Don't gamble more than you can afford to lose, but gamble. I mean, go in, and if you love the idea, if you can't get the idea out of your head, if it's driving you crazy that you're not doing it, do it. And it might not be the forever thing, but even though this lasted as brief a time as it did, I still think what we did was awesome. We made something beautiful. We made people really happy. We created opportunity and new markets for some small producers in the territory. Mm-hmm. So although we failed fast, I don't think we failed at all.
Yeah.
So do it. Like, don't bet your house. And take the time to really look at it after a period of set a goal of, in a year, I got to look at this.
Yeah, and ask for help too, because this community is so incredible. That's one thing I found. Like, you are not on your own in this community if you're an entrepreneur. I was so in awe and am in awe of that. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we didn't say no to this chat, even though I kind of secretly was like, I just want to go in a hole, crawl into a hole now. I don't know if I want to sit in front of a bunch of people and talk about mistakes that we made, but yeah, the whole thing was just
part of
great.
The whole business cycle to look at, though, is knowing when to say that's enough. Knowing when to close the door or to step back. No, really, because you can carry on throwing money at something for a really long time and get yourself in a position where you can't maybe climb out of the hole, or you can't regroup.
Yeah. That's it.
Maybe we're still Pollyanna, but like I think do the thing. Yep.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you both for coming. It was and so for those of you who don't know, the Entrepreneurship Speaker Series is powered by Rolf and Marg Hougen, who really have kind of made their stamp here in town, and they've played a huge role in shaping how we know Whitehorse, how we know the territory, and that's, they just add to that legacy of entrepreneurship throughout the territory. And it's pretty amazing to be able to take part in this and to have incredible entrepreneurs like you two join us. And feel free to come to the next one, which is going to be on April 4th. So it'll be Jordy of Triple J's, and then on May 2nd, we'll have Rolf and Marg here themselves, and so they'll be sharing their tale, and that'll definitely be worth it. So if you know any other friends, anyone who's thinking about entrepreneurship or has any questions, they can come to the next one, and we're always happy to have more people. So thank you all for coming, for sharing some time with us, and
And don't forget, we have lovely art.
paintings also for sale.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for being such a good.
Wholesale prices, exactly, right?
Exactly. Yeah.